Welcome back to another episode of the Blitz Break here on a Friday morning. I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen. Thanks for joining us once again. It is a beautiful April morning, not pouring in all the weatherly stuff that we've been dealing with. As always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, follow us on all of our social platforms, and connect with us in any of the formats that we're out there. We appreciate your support. Today is going to be a fun episode where me and the resident Texan just get to kind of go back and forth at each other. And if one of us doesn't make it out alive, then we'll see who the better or weaker man is at tolerating the other's BS today. So, Buzz, I'm excited to do this one with you, man.
Yeah, it's, what did we do last week?
You act like I remember what I did 5 minutes ago, much less 5 minutes from now.
I was just sitting here trying to think of who we actually had with us last week.
Well, we had on Albert Chavez, and then we had Mike Miklas. And
Mike Miklas, I think.
So those have been our last two guests.
That's right. Great guests. I mean, Mike is an inspiration, and loved his story. Of course, Albert and his book. We talked a little bit about that. You know, all these guys have books. Why don't you and I have a book?
There's a lot of like coined phrases for things, some of which we can say on here, some of which we can't, that involve insecurity or whatever you call it, inferiority complexes. I am certainly developing my own lack of authoring a book inferiority complex, because I actually have about 5 I know I would like to write, and so then I just feel like a complete failure that I haven't bothered to write one and figure that out yet.
Well, in my previous life, people say, "Oh, how come you haven't written a book?" And it's like, okay, wait a minute. In my previous life, I authored textbooks, and I don't know, 40, 50 textbooks that was written about the mortgage industry, different subjects and counseling and that type of stuff, but not the same as a work of fiction, nonfiction.
Vulnerability art that is your story. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. It's totally different. I have a niece that just wrote a book, like a novel, little, or a work of fiction type of story book. I'm really proud of her. It takes a lot of work to do that. Christy McCord, one of our loan officers, has written a book. It's not been published yet, but I'm excited for that to come out. It's her story about her and her mom, and she actually the last 2 years ran in 100-mile races. The first one, she hurt herself at about mile 70. Could you imagine that? And then she came back the next year and actually completed the entire 100 miles. And it's like her story. So yeah, we've got to do something to write a book.
Yeah, that is absolutely becoming almost like a moment of, if I don't do this, I'm going to feel very, very incapable of escaping it. Because, for me personally, when I get the chance to hear the guests that we've had on, them as mortgage professionals, real estate professionals, title professionals, whatever their business focus is, and you get to know them and kind of their overall personality and how they operate and think, and that in and of itself is part of the reward of what we do. But when you get to look inside of the real human vulnerability that a lot of these books put forth, or the true intention to help people create the North Star that guides them, I think it's such a tremendously different perspective on people, and I leave inspired every time. I mean, Michelle Zaragoza.
Yeah,
and
I
her,
missed that
her book.
episode. I wasn't able to be
You
here.
weren't able to,
Yeah.
and like breaking through the ceiling. It's such a not only a real problem that virtually, I don't say for everybody goes through a point in time where you realize you've hit this point and you're trying to figure out how to grow, and you don't necessarily know what the thing is that's holding you back.
Right.
And figuring out those things that, just again, another perspective. I say it all the time, and my kids love to tease me about being repetitive, and I'm like, well, that's the coach in me, because part of having something sink in is that you say it so many times it becomes ingrained in your brain. But I've always felt better in how I operate with exponential, improved results when I have both a coach and am coaching or leading. Simply, in my mind, as I say all the time, coaching creates accountability for myself, because I just get this twinge of, if I'm telling you to do this, it's really inspiring me to do the same. But the value of a coach to get you out of your tunnel vision, a lot of these books do that. And a lot of these books kind of give you that just, here's somebody else looking at it a different way, and you realize, that's that little nugget of information that's just shifted the way I see the world.
Well, each of the guests that we've had have told a lot of personal information. It's a personal journey for them, and it's so much better to learn from their experiences than to have to go through some of them. And that's what I say. It's like learning about other people's lives and what they've gone through and the mistakes that they've made, and it's so much. You gain so much from just the looking glass of watching what they did and hearing about it.
That's right.
So that you don't have to make those same mistakes. And each one of the books that they've written have had lots of insight. It's just it's amazing the knowledge that you can gain just by reading their stories. So
without a doubt, and I think where I would not counter your point, I'd actually just kind of add a different layer to it, is that I think, and I can speak for myself and all the ones I've read, plus, I have a long list of books that I've read over the years. It doesn't always mean that you get to avoid making the mistake. A lot of times it's how you deal with the fact that you've also already made that same mistake, and gives you a relatable place to figure out what you do. And I think a lot of people are saddled with the mistakes that they've made, that they either recognize and don't know how to recover from, don't even recognize yet that they've made or they're making. And so I think in many cases it's also not even preventative as much as it is directional on how to come through where we are, because so many of the pressures that build, I know I relate to one of the things specifically that was in Albert's book around this idea of you try to be perfect in everything to everyone, because and it's a very common trait, I think, just in general in people, and not just men or women by any stretch, but I think it's really accentuated in athletics, where you're just always looking for the thing you didn't do as well as you could. So you're constantly chasing perfection and improvement, very rarely thinking about what you succeeded at, right? Because you're just turning the page to the next thing. And so I think it's a very relatable topic, because, whether it's being a parent, whether it's your business, your profession, there's nothing unhealthy about chasing perfection. What's the potential imbalance is how you deal with the failures that are guaranteed to happen. And people, I think, struggle sometimes with navigating. Pursuit of perfection is not something I would ever discourage anyone to do. Chase it, chase it, because it brings the best out in you. But you've just got to cope with the failing the right way.
Coping with with unrealistic expectations, and the fact that perfection isn't something that can ever be obtained. it's something you can aspire to. You can chase it, but not getting there can't mean the end of your world.
It can't take your confidence from you. It has to reinforce
exactly. Because everybody talks, every book out there talks about, fail. It's not necessarily the failure. It's what you do with the information, blah, blah, blah. That the faster you fail, the quicker you get to success. All of those kinds of theories is because no one ever reaches perfection. And it's almost unrealistic to put that stress on you when you're not there.
Yeah, you need the right balance of that.
You got to have the balance. It's crazy to have those kind of expectations. So,
and most of the time, the ones that hit you are not the things that you're prepared to fail forward with. That like I'm gonna bang my head into the wall. Like I'm speaking from my own personal experience, right? Like you go into certain things, I'm not gonna nail this the first time. I'm gonna have to try this, and I see the wall, and I'm gonna figure out my way up, over, and around it. And I know this is gonna be a project, and you embrace the challenge. What you see in a lot of the books that I think is really important for people, that I think is worth just highlighting, is that it's the failure that you weren't anticipating, the thing that it means a lot to you that you didn't expect to fail in, that usually is the one that gets people stuck, right? It's the thing that you hold on to. Much like I just had this conversation with a very good friend of mine, former teammate, while I was down in Fresno hanging out, and we were just laughing about the fact that like take parenting, right? You learn so much from your parents. About the things that they do well and the things that they don't do well, the ways they messed you up, right, or whatever, to put it kind of in that funny light. And you learn from that, and then you say, all right, I'm going to do all these things, and then you end up realizing you make all the mistakes that you never thought of, like the ones that you just weren't exposed to,
right? And
you have to adjust it. And then we laugh about the fact that they're going to end up doing the same things to your grandkids, because it'll be all this stuff that they didn't think of.
Yep.
And I think that all of that is really relevant and powerful to inspire people to just take the first step, and each morning, each day, take action towards what you want, right?
Yep.
It goes
Absolutely.
back to and I like to say, look at the top of the mountain, look back down at your feet and start walking. But, when it comes to social media and what we're doing, and why, whether you call it podcasting, producing content, being present, being human, is so important, is that the reason all of those things resonate with us is because everybody's going through their own version of it in life. And that's clients, borrowers, clients as borrowers, partners, and originators, and everybody else in the world.
Yeah. Well, and, hearing everyone's stories, it's inspirational. It's educational. Like you said, a lot of times it's not, I don't want to make those mistakes, but it's like you were saying, I see that, like this person, I'm in the same situation. Here's how they got through it. And this gives you a pathway. And it also helps you get out of the mindset that, oh my God, this is horrible. I'm never going to get out of this.
The shame and guilt concept.
The shame, guilt. There's other people. And here's one more little aspect of it is, I think that a lot of times comparison, perspective comparison, let me put it that way, is really, really healthy. I'll give you an example. Tammy, my girl, had a full knee replacement a couple of weeks ago, and it's been a really painful for her. And it's, a lot of self-doubt about, oh my God, why did I do this? Of course, everybody you talk to, they have a knee replacement or a hip replacement. It makes such a difference in their life. After the first few weeks, it starts getting better and better. So hearing their stories and having perspective, but just, I think it was yesterday, we have a friend that has some really, really serious medical situations. And as we were sitting there and she was, in pain with her knee and all of that, we started having this conversation about this friend of ours that literally kind of life and death. And all of a sudden her attitude about, she even made the comment, was like, wow, I was feeling bad about how sore my knee is right now. And now I feel stupid and this is really trivial. I have a limp right now and it hurts. But I want to keep it in perspective. So, even hearing other people's stories from a comparison standpoint is like, okay, I'm doing okay, comparatively. And I'll take it one step further. This morning, I get up and I read a lot of blogs and I read a lot of really eclectic information, and got onto a story that was written, or a letter that was written by a 26-year-old that had cancer, that was written just days before they passed away, on advice and perspective. And it's really tugs at your heartstrings and then makes you go, wow, how dumb am I to, here's all my problems. And it's like that much of a problem compared to a lot of other people and what they're dealing with. So, hearing other people's stories, it has so many different levels.
Absolutely. I think it's important. It's part of the whole human connection piece that creates us the opportunity every time to grow as individuals. And it's one of the reasons why the isolation, when people were going through COVID, they struggle was the lack of that exposure.
Absolutely.
And we've talked a lot about what and why we set the stage for this, to really bring, mortgage, real estate, business professionals to a place where they can share their stories and they can help other people, and around the lens of the importance of getting it out on social media, using the medium of a podcast and YouTube and all these places where people go to seek what they're looking for exactly when they want to find it, right? Versus, hoping to find it. And in every scenario, like we just discussed, it's been inspiring. But I think also it comes back to what we all do on a day-to-day for business. And both you and I are mortgage professionals, and what we do as leaders has an impact, good or bad, in anything in life. But in an industry right now, mortgage has been essentially, I've been in it 20 years. You've been in it since 1762, and
celebrating my 250th year.
You've made a deal with the devil that as long as you stay in mortgage, you live on.
I stay young and beautiful, just like I am.
But I think the topic that I'd love to talk about today too is what we are regularly seeing and talking about that's facing mortgage originators today. And in my mind, as we talk about all the reasons that it's important to do social media and the technology and video and sales and human connection, there's a lot of things, but there's a core fundamental concept, right, that we inherently are talking about, but maybe isn't necessarily just the spotlight right on it, which is being disciplined and working hard in the areas that make positive activities happen, right? And being willing to do and put yourself out there and be human and show your story is a big part of creating connection to people. But then, as we've heard Katie McDiarmid talk about, a bunch of times, Julie says it, we say following up and building a consistent relationship is all about discipline and drive. when we look at the industry today, I do see a lot of people still talking about the idea that they're waiting on rates and that their career and their future is going to be directly correlated to rates finally dropping.
Yeah.
And while I don't, disagree with anyone that like the rates drop, our business evolves very fast. I wouldn't say evolve, it changes rapidly. But really the truth is loan officers shouldn't be waiting, and real estate agents shouldn't be waiting on rates to drop, because if they haven't got a game plan to compete and grow market share right now, that rate drop is not going to save their future, right? What they're doing this exact period of time in the last several years is really what's setting a foundation for market share. So I'd love to get into that topic. I mean, when you look at, as long as you've been in the business, what do you think is the same and what do you think is different in 2026? And what's your, from your perspective, Buzz, the thing that separates successful, driven, high, top 5% loan officers still today? And what do you think is holding back a lot of loan officers that, maybe have been successful in the past or trying to turn a corner?
Man, we could talk for, a week on a lot of the subjects that you just touched on. I believe that today's loan officers, there's a lot of things that are coming at our industry from all sides. Technology, there's an assault on our industry, all industries, with technology, and you hear it all the time. And I'm not just talking about the mortgage industry, but look at all the layoffs that these major companies are talking about right now because of technology is coming in. AI is replacing. They don't need as many people to affect X amount of consumers. So exactly. they can lay off these people. So there's the assault of technology on our industry. There's the assault of the idea of affordability, which is a true problem. The idea of affordability when I started in the early 80s, or when our parents were, well, of course I could be your parent, I don't know. But our parents buying houses in the late 50s, 60s, 70s, affordability wasn't as huge of an issue as it is today. So there's those things. There's the assault on the consumer, our consumer, from technology that makes it easier for them to get information, and it's not always the best information. It's not always the truth. Yep. So, I mean, there's all this assault. So I believe that there's a lot of loan officers that think along the lines of, the way that I need to compete is to have the very, very best price. And while pricing is important, you have to be competitive. But this idea of having the very best price really kind of commoditizes, it makes us a commodity.
That's right.
And makes it so much easier for a computer program to take over what you're doing. And that's the tragedy of it, because this industry is so complex, and the idea of your lifelong finances as a buyer, and this will go to some of the conversations that you and I will have, but the consequences of not really getting the education and not really getting the support and the information that you need long term, and the services and all of that kind of stuff, doesn't do you any good, because there's so much more to buying a home, maximizing your tax advantages, maximizing that investment, utilizing real estate, all of those kinds of things is more along the lines of what's really important is ensuring that you are the most valuable person to your database, to your clients. You are the most valuable person. And you have to do that, sure, competitive rates, but making sure it's the right product, making sure that you have the right support. And we'll talk a little bit about our program, Give Value, because there's a lot more to buying a house than just making the mortgage payment. I mean,
way more.
There's, you have to take care of the systems, or you'll be replacing an HVAC system, which is expensive. You have to take care of the roof, or you're going to be replacing a roof, which roofs today could be $20,000
or more,
or more, $30,000 on a bigger home. So you have to, you can't just buy the house, make the payments, and think that it's going to be that way. You have to take care of all those things. So there's a lot more to this. And I believe that the really, really smart loan officers are the ones that are going out with more value than just saying, hey, I've got the lowest interest rate. Because if that was the only factor that you were having to sell, then you should also, as a loan officer, be willing to work for a lot less. That way you can deliver a lot better pricing. So this idea of I've got to be the best price, I believe is holding a lot of people back. The same conversation that I'm going to wait for the best interest rate before I buy, or before I sell and buy another house. Or if I'm a real estate professional, a loan officer, I'm waiting for the market to get better. And in the meantime, the really good professionals are out there capturing, market share. They're doing the things that need to be done because people are still buying and selling and refinancing houses right now. And you have to be the one that's out there giving the value, explaining the advantages, and helping them close the deals.
I agree with that, and I think the point that you hit on that I just think needs to be accentuated is, the race to the bottom. Yeah, there's a lot of conversations with real estate and mortgage. You can kind of interchange these concepts where
Sure.
If you're making the sale at the point of purchase, you really are commoditized based on the fact that anything you are doing is a promise that has not been fulfilled, and it involves a trust that you have not yet earned, right? And so in many cases, the main variable is price because you haven't already built trust or delivered value. And there is no doubt part of this world works where you come into contact with someone right at the point where they're ready to purchase something, and you're immediately in a transactional dynamic. And certainly a great part of the business is right place, right time, kind of. But what I see a lot of is loan officers who were successful and who worked very hard and hit kind of, like we talk about all the time, you're, whether good or bad, you're building habits every day by what you do, right? Yeah. You aren't setting out to make a habit, but the habit is being formed by every little choice that you make and every behavior that you engage in. Well, we went through a stretch in this industry, and we've talked about it, where there was so much business. Everybody needed to refinance or move or change, that the challenge that most successful people in the industry faced was not being able to get to it as fast as they needed to. And so it was all about getting it done as quick as possible, and not really in an understandable way having the brain power and space to think critically about how to deliver value well beyond that, because you were just simply trying to serve the most important immediate need that the customer had. And the thing that I think it's really important is that we went from that to a complete scarcity, and then the fear of losing what was in already a scarcity mode led to, you know, the discount. It's like any business where if all of a sudden demand drops and the supply of offering is there, everybody starts to slash prices, and that becomes the norm to settle in. But we are now settled into a place where so many people have exited the business, and all this evolution of technology and AI is an assault on relationships, but it has zero chance to surpass someone who was definitively built the kind of relationship and trust that is of value to a consumer. And I really, just to hit this point home, when you define the difference between AI and human, what I unequivocally see with successful loan officers is where they spend their critical thinking time is in delivering value at every stage. 365 days a year, they're thinking about, how do I deliver value to my clients, whether or not they ever are engaged in a discussion with me about purchasing a home, refinancing a home, selling a home, whatever it is. They are fixated on value. And that is something that only you can really engage in with the brain that is a part of our human makeup. AI can create systems and make efficiencies and take the mindless tasks that you want to do on repeat and help. But all the successful people I see, they're being very creative at finding ways to deliver value regardless, with no expectation of return.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the message now. When you say that, people go, well, how is that? Probably the thing that I've heard the most in the last 3 years, I don't have anything to call my customers about, was one of the many things that I heard. And I think we've, already the Give Value program and many of the things that we're doing is, if you don't have something to call them about, that means that you have reduced yourself to being strictly about them getting a mortgage.
Well, and that's a huge point that you're making, is that there is one of the biggest downfalls that most salespeople do is this call reluctance, is what you would call it across the board. And we all know that as a salesperson, your job is to develop that relationship with your, with new people, and keep that relationship with your, past clients, and be of value. This is exactly what we're talking about. And so many salespeople have this huge call reluctance. And it comes from this realization that, wow, first of all, I haven't talked to him in 3 years. And so now, what am I calling him about? There's this fear. It's like, yeah, if you haven't talked to him in 3 years, yeah, it's kind of a awkward call, especially if you don't have something of value to offer them. If all you're doing is saying, hey, I want to get your refinance, you have real fears, because in your heart,
because it's not going to be a great conversation. It's a one-sided ask.
Yeah, you are not a good friend. You have not taken care of your database. So that's where this reluctance comes in, is I don't have anything to talk to him about, and I've not really done a really good job of it. It's like you have a friend that you haven't talked to, and you've ghosted. You haven't talked to him in 3 years, and all of a sudden you're calling them because you want to borrow their pickup truck. I mean, the answer is, well, no, I'm busy that weekend, or whatever the case is, because you haven't done a good job. And so that's the problem, is they don't really have anything to talk to them about. And those are some of the reasons why you have to really have more value than just an interest rate and a loan program.
Yep.
And that's where some of the things that you and I have been so focused on at Big Valley is, things like our events. We talked a little bit, 2 months ago? 2 months ago? 2 months ago on our skate date night. Crazy simple, but it was right the evening before Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And we created an event so that we could invite a bunch of people, your family, bring your kids, bring your spouse, come go skating. Hold hands, go skating, get a slice of pizza, Coca-Cola, have a fun night out on us. And we had, I think, between our two locations, we had over 500, it was between 500 and 600 people come, a bunch of families, and there's value in that. We were out there inviting people something free of charge to come and enjoy with their family. And we didn't even talk to people about mortgages. It wasn't about that.
Wasn't the point.
We didn't even, I think we had a sign at our table so that they could sign in. And we gave them little T-shirts and
great collaboration with Give Culture as a company.
And it was one of those things. We have an event coming up on Mother's Day.
Yep.
Weekend.
Mother's Day weekend, May 9th.
May 9th, here in the park, not too far from here. And it's just something, you're with your family. Why not come out to the park? We're going to have photos where they can take a photo booth and take photos. The kids can, or the family can make a Mother's Day
Day card right after. Yeah.
Put the pictures in there, things like that. Other little gifts for mom. I mean, it's just a fun way to, especially if the kids want to make mom something. What a cool way. Come out to the park, spend 30 minutes, and make mom a little gift with a picture, and it's just really cool. Those are the kind of things that our loan officers are calling their database and sending information out to them and saying, look, I don't want anything from you. I want to give you this opportunity for kind of a fun little arts and craft, make mom a cool, Mother's Day card. And I guarantee you that card will be stuck to the refrigerator for years compared to, something that you got at Safeway.
Without a doubt. I mean, kids making cards is special. And I know when we brainstormed, I think this event in particular, the idea being, look, create an environment where the kids can make a card, but it's got the photo. It's a preservation of time as to what the kids, what did they look like? What were they wearing that you can create, right? That's just an added element to a card that goes to, look, I'm a father of 3, and when my daughters make me Father's Day cards, those things go and they're saved for forever. And vice versa, the Mother's Day cards that my kids make my wife, they're meaningful. You throw a photo into it and add a little extra. And so the idea behind it is take the photos, have some fun, let the kids go jump in the bounce house, create a card that has the photo. And yeah, I think it's powerful. And we've really emphasized the importance of creating events with vendors that share in the desire to create value and an alignment. And I talk about this all the time. My obsession is creating alignment where everyone has the win-win, right? Yep. Where you create that, the vendors, for us, the photo booth plus the art company and their business and the bounce house. Everybody's winning because they're getting connected to people's lives and it helps their business. And then for us, it creates a scalable capability to do this in as many cities as we want, wherever our people are, to deliver to as many of our customers. But what's at its root and I think this is important, and it's what I think loan officers that are being, not just successful at their, objective of growing, but are really setting themselves apart. It's taking a step back, being human, and going, what's my life like? And what are the things that I appreciate and that I value, that I like, and what would be meaningful to me? And then thinking, okay, putting that through a lens, would that be meaningful to the majority of the people that are in my database that I know, the majority of the people that I'm close to? And if you think about things like that, and then you start delivering value, it's actually not that complicated, right? It actually starts to be very simple. I mean, when you think about home ownership, you mentioned upkeep and maintenance is a thing, and trusting people to come into your home and work on it and be in charge of maintaining your most valuable investment, the most cost-filled investment of your life, is important. Having trust that the contractor in your house with your kids is someone that you want in your house. Having people that you can trust. We're all saturated with decisions. Creating a network of people that you can trust that will help with that is a powerful lift. I know for me, I get decision fatigue through work every day. If I can go and have validated, referenced, trustworthy people to quickly take care of other things that I don't have to spend any brain power on, I'm so appreciative of that, because it just check the box, get it done, keep moving. I don't have to exhaust myself shopping, because like you said, there's so much information, it can become consuming just to make a decision about who to hire for something. Yeah.
Well, and what you're referring to is, I think the two big things from that you and I are doing, on this idea of creating more value. The one is the events, and we have right now this year we have 4 events. We have the Mother's Day coming up, and then we have, which I think is going to be the most fun, is a drive-in movie Halloween party at a drive-in movie. I think that's going to be fun. And then our Santa sip and shop with taking pictures with Santa. We did that last year, and it was just a fantastic event. But putting on these events so that you're really adding this value, like what we've been talking about. You have something to get on the phone, or you have something to send out to your clientele that's a lot more than just, hey, if you're thinking about refinance, give me a call. No, I want to be more than that to my partners and my databases and my friends and relatives, that type of stuff. The other thing that goes hand in hand with this is our give value, which is play on words, but this list of service providers, whether it be contractors, whether it be, one of the first
theme parks, events, anything family related or home related, right?
One of the first sponsors that stepped up, we've had him on the show, was the owner of Jaguar Heating and Air Conditioning, and great company. Just a little plug for them, but having this list of service providers that our partners can look at, reach out to, it helps with that decision overload that you're talking about. Because if you just go to, you look at all the little pamphlets that you get at the grocery store or online, and you have all these ads. Let's say you need a heating and air conditioning. Holy crap. When you do it, it's just like all these fantastic claims and all of this.
That's right.
And then you hear of these horror stories where, didn't go right. What we are kind of doing is providing these contractors, these service providers, people that we've already worked with, that somebody else has already worked with. We have referrals to them. They're the top people that we know are going to come out and do a good job, give a fair price, discounted fair price, and you can rely on the fact that, hey, if they're not doing their job, give us a call. We'll reach out.
That's right.
You have people in your corner. So these two things together really gives our loan officers something more of value. Absolutely. If there's new programs and things that come out, in the lending industry, in the financial side of things, absolutely, we're going to really be there for them on those. And sure, we want to make sure that you have all that information, but we also want to do more for you and your family.
Well, and that's that right there. So here's to me the thing that I think is important, because one of my problems that I see for loan officers, they're saturated with too much information for their own, like more than they want in many cases, right, as well. And there is every type of model out there. And, when the market shifted, the scarcity mindset led to this idea of preserve as much, you need to make as much in commission as possible. And there was bloat in a lot of mortgage banks and companies where there was all this excess spending that translated down to put pressure on what was the right balance of earning a living as a professional and providing value to customers and all of the above. And like anything, value is an equation of what you pay versus what you get. And if that's in balance, there is a huge swell of conversation around the only point that's talked about in too many cases is how much do I make and price, and the discussion around value delivered to customers is not talked about enough in the open industry circles for the loan officer population. And it troubles me some, and sometimes something fierce when I listen to people, because what I hear unilaterally with loan officers that are successful is they are trapped in inability to scale, because we're all one person and we all have skills and strengths and things that maybe we're capable of, but we hate doing, or things that we do and we're terrible at them. And we just do them because there's nobody else to. And what gets missed in that conversation is, name me a championship team that didn't have great teammates that all played a role. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that's a myth. It doesn't exist, right? Like, the ability to be truly successful requires a team where everybody's playing their role. And I, after 20 years in this business, have seen loan officers and producing branch managers and people all with a talent and an ability and a desire to do a lot of good for a lot of homeowners, but they're one person, and the team that they manage, that, managing personnel, managing and hiring, staffing, coming up with ideas like the things that we're talking about, executing them, scaling them, putting them in place. Those are all different than connecting and being a loan officer or a realtor engaging in the actual service that you then need to provide them. Mm-hmm. They're different aspects. And to be able to do all of it and do it at scale is really not something that is feasible for the mass majority. And so the sacrifice a lot of people are making is, I've chosen to go the route where I want to just preserve as much as I can for myself, but then they have zero ability to scale. And you hear it. And so I know you and I are having these conversations, and I couldn't double my business tomorrow. Well, then what are you doing if you can't double your business? Because your database is actually what you're fighting to preserve and protect, because your longevity and sustainability in this industry is how many people, not that are in your database, how many people you're in a relationship with.
Yep.
Like, who are you truly connected with, and who do you feel like is not just a contact, but when you pick up the phone and call them, they're hey, Buzz, great to hear from you. Good to see you. Oh, I got your invitation to that. Thank you so much. That's a relationship.
Yep.
Not someone who you stumbled across and you just have their contact info. So what I think is an important conversation to be had is right now, right? Everybody's navigated the tough times. You've fought through succeeding to be ready to scale. And one person can't do it. And what we're doing is trying to take all the things that are fundamentally not the loan officer's core job and do it for them to deliver on them, knowing that that's coming from that place so that they can focus on the things that they need to do at scale. And so I see two gaps, and you know, my message to loan officers out there that are struggling, if you're at a place and you feel like you're not getting value for the things that you're paying for, then that's a good time to observe and see what is in fact the right fit. I understand that. And that includes the relationship and the trust in the people you work with as a major factor. But also, if you're sitting in a place where you've cut out all the resources and you're trying to be a one-person show, you've got to have the self-reflection moment of, am I even capable of doing what would be necessary to scale up and deliver value to these customers? Because at this point, then the only thing I'm doing is competing back to price to try to win the few deals. It's not sustainable. And the real threat is, who is likely to survive in this industry longer? The person who has 1,000 people that they're in a relationship with in their database, or the person who has 150 people that are in their database that they are in a database relationship with? Clearly, the person that has 1,000 is far, far, far more equipped to be more successful and sustain. But how do you get there? Scale, and you can't do that on your own. And I understand it because, 20 years in, and you've been in the business for 1,700 years, so you've seen all of it. But being on a good team with people who are genuinely focused on helping you give more to your customers, to your partners, and then generate more leads and more leverage is the definition of value and is worth the spend. And that's what I find when, where we're growing and where we're seeing people join, they see the value and it's worth the expense. The ones that I hope will start to be reached on a larger and larger scale are the ones that are sitting there going, I'm stuck. Like, I can't grow. I can't scale, and I don't have enough bandwidth.
And the sad part is that a lot of them haven't even realized it yet.
That's true. There's not been that flux of business to hammer them.
Yeah, it's sometimes how do you boil a frog? Well, you put them in the water and slowly heat it up, and they're still sitting there, not really understanding yet where they are, and that they don't have the ability to do that scale. Should some of the predictions of better interest rates and more people coming back into the market, now I'm okay with where the market is. How do I double my business?
How do I just scale
and they go,
regardless?
Oh, well, wait a minute. They look around and they go, well, there's no way. So a lot of them haven't even realized it yet. But, that's why I think that one of our practices that we talk a lot about is our philosophy is done for you, done with you, and the things you do for yourself. And we're leaning into, here's a bunch of things that we're going to do for you. Just relax. We're going to do these things for you. These things we have to do together, so that
your
you have
input is in there.
Yeah, your input. There's certain things I can't build your database. You have to build a database, but here's the things that we're going to do for you. And the last thing is here's the things that if we can get those things correct, you're going to be able to do a whole bunch of stuff for yourself that you're not able to do right now, that you don't have those abilities. So I think that's one of our core philosophies in recruiting is taking a look and seeing where people are and saying, here's what we're going to do for you. We'll do these things collaboratively. This way you can do those things you were talking about. You can do the things that you're really, really good at and the things that you really need to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
On a daily basis.
And that's where, a lot of these, and I hate to say it, a lot of the brokerages where people have put themselves, I want the very best price and I want to make the very most amount of money. They've put themselves in a position that's like, oh, well, wait a minute. I'm going to have to hire. I'm going to have to spend money. I can't do it all by, there's no way for me to do it.
Well, and what's really the obvious point to that, and there's a couple things you said in there that I want to just hit. The people that are doing a lot of volume or doing a lot of loans that are in the broker space, they're not the best priced. They don't, because the investors and the partners that they work with are not the best price, because the very same ones that help them create scale are not able to be the best price because they're investing in the value and all the resources that are there. So by default, they're solving it with the same methodology. And one of the greatest myths I think in this industry that gets formulated is the idea that someone has a somehow crazy distinct advantage and gets to sell to some place that is a super top secret and investor, and they therefore have access to rates that no one else does. It's all a product of the markets, and then where and how you divide that pie up, and where you invest your resources. And there are ebbs and flows and variations, but in the end, when you actually look at, and this is one thing I learned really, really deeply over the course of a 5-year period of helping build out a company, is that when you make everything apples to apples, the economics of companies are so close. Like, it's just, where is it being allocated? What are they investing in? And so that brings it just back to the point to me of the thoughtful nature of what is valuable to a loan officer. And I think what drives me today is what is valuable to a loan officer. Well, to me, what's valuable to a loan officer is creating leverage in a relationship through direct value to their partners, creating leads in their business, and creating loyalty with their clients and their partners. Like, those three things are everything. Then they can focus on what makes them unique the most. But some of the things that are necessary for those things to be developed require investment of resources, time, thought, and someone to consider them. And I'm obsessed with finding simple ways that you can do things on scale and repeat them, right? And so you and I've talked about it. I get crazy complex things, think all the way through so that I can spit it out in a way that goes, this is the dumbified version, so that you don't have to think about it. You can just do it. But I challenge the industry's mentality a bit today with waiting for rates to drop to grow. You don't need to wait. As a matter of fact, really what you should be looking at it from the standpoint of, if I can double my business right now, if I doubled my business in 2025 and in 2024, I've doubled my market share. And then whenever the market swings, all that's going to do is result in the same exponential market swing. You may not see it the same way. You may be doubling from 30 loans to 60 loans, not 30 loans to 200 loans. But when things flip, you're suddenly going to be looking at all that market share, because at the actual available volume of business that's out there for each licensed loan officer is actually greater today than it was at its peak, because that many people have left the business. So the idea that I can't grow my business is actually a flawed logic. For every loan officer out there, there's actually more loans and more dollars out there because of that vacated, hole. And, so I think, to me, that's been such a big, conversation. And I think the other part is, it's a partnership. I think loan officers need to to be always able to be in a position where they're generating their own business, not in a one-sided relationship with any referral partner, right? Where they're building business together. And so, look, here are, in my mind, problems that we all face: doing social media, creating content, simplifying it. What we've focused on here is creating a simple, easy, don't have to think about it, just do the thing you do best, carry conversations, deliver your message, your wisdom, your consultation, and your personality, and the content can be created for you.
Yeah.
Deliver value to your customers on a regular basis, savings on things that they need to spend money on, experiences that will boost the memories that they have in the homes that they own for their families, and help your partners grow business. Those aren't novel ideas. Well, they're just scalable needs.
You just hit the trifecta right there with our value proposition. Exactly what you just said. I mean, that sums it up in a bow. That's what you and I have been focused on. This is why we do this podcast. It's why we started it, is to show our loan officers. And if you're a loan officer out there and you're struggling on how to be productive and be of value to your partners, like a real estate agent, could you imagine helping them be able to bring this kind of content and be creative on how you want to bring the messages out there, but you're helping them create leads and presence. You're helping them with value. You're helping them with memories. That's the trifecta. Exactly. It's what we're all about.
It's the core message. And, honestly, my favorite part of the business is when and in life, going back to my sports days, is when you're able to create something and then inspire someone that uses it, and then they help you make it better, expand it, use it, and then they see the lift. And, I also look at and say that these are conversations that make us all better. And, I look forward to our Fridays here at the Blitz Break. Yeah. I look forward to, my episodes of the Triple J Sports Podcast. They keep me motivated and inspired and on target, and leading by example, with the idea that, look, I don't even like watching my own clips. I never really have. I like listening to the things that everybody else has to say.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, the overall, just where are we at in 2026 and competing, the benefit of having these things is to create this sense of confidence that I can go out and be of value, and that I can be more selective in who I work with and how, and not be in that sense of I'll take whatever I can get. And that is the conversion of the true top performers. They're selective in who they let in, much the same that people who have abundance in anything, I'm not going to bring people in that are going to bleed my energy dry, or are not going to reciprocate in relationships, because I've created so much value, or I'm giving so much that if you aren't going to be in that same boat, then I'm okay.
Same mentality.
Partying. Exactly. But you have to start with giving enough to generate that level of abundance. You can't expect it to come if you're the one taking. And, I personally, as we definitely had a long convo on that, I think we should, shift and have some fun. And I'll wrap with saying, listen, if loan officers, real estate agents out there, like if you're looking at and you're struggling on scale, part of, again, why we do this is to bring content to you that inspires you, that brings new ideas and shows you people that are doing things that maybe you yourself want to do. But certainly reach out to Buzz or myself if you're looking for ideas on how to solve your problems and you feel like you're trapped in a one-person business. That's certainly what inspires and rewards us and what we've been doing. So we'll wrap that segment on that, and I'm gonna flip gears a little, and we got a couple minutes before we want to wrap, big guy. I gotta throw a couple overall topics. What do you think are some things that consumers believe about home ownership that are misconceptions? Is there any major misconception about home ownership that jumps out to you?
One of the first things that I think is a misconception about consumers and buying homes is that it's out of everybody's reach and there's no way that I could own a home, or that I have bad credit and I'll never be able to get a home. First of all, I've worked with so many people that had bad credit, a situation that happened, and how we've overcome that. You have to work on it, but there is a path. And I don't have enough money for the down payment. Well, there's all sorts of down payment assistance programs. There's all sorts of ways to gather the money, and qualifying for a home loan is not the hardest thing in the world. So I'd say the first misconception is that it's out of reach for me, because there's always a way. You get a really good loan officer. You work with some of our people, and there's always a pathway. May not be today, but I can definitely show you a path to home ownership. The second thing that I think is a big myth or challenge is, I got to have the lowest interest rate, because it's going to be, paying for a home is long term, and interest rates come up and they come down. And if interest rates fall, we can always get them a lower interest rate. But there's always ways to mitigate the affordability of the payment and things like that. And I guess the last thing I would say is that, I'm getting a house, and the only reason that I'm buying this house is that it's going to make me a millionaire. Well, there's so many more reasons to have that house. And it's not always made people money. Mm-hmm. Yes, I would say that probably the biggest wealth builder that we have, as Americans, is buying a home. Long-term, taking care of it, that type of stuff. Real estate investments are one of the biggest wealth builders that there is. So, yes, but there's also tax ramifications that can help you on that front. There's the pride in home ownership and the base of a family.
Having just a place to call home that is yours. Just a
place to call home that's yours. I don't know if anybody out there that's traveled a lot. I've traveled over my life, but it's always, I can't wait to go to Hawaii. But after you've been there a while, it's like, I can't wait to get home to my bed, so there's this pride of home ownership. So the misconception that the only reason is I'm doing this is for wealth. Okay, that's a really good reason, but there's so many other layers to it. So it's not out of your reach. It's not impossible. It's not terribly difficult. And there's so many more reasons than just that it's going to help you build wealth, hopefully. Mm-hmm. There was years where my portfolio lost. I was upside down if I'd have sold. You had a house that your very first one did not make you any money.
I definitely am. I am well versed in what it's like to go upside down. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Those were the things that I think are the biggest myths.
Great. Well, I would imagine you want to come home to bed after you rode across the ocean on your ship too.
Exactly. Those tall ships were
those underneath. Work. But all right, let's have some fun here. So who would likely survive longer in a city with zero contacts showing up between you and I?
Oh gosh, zero contacts.
Zero contacts.
I'm much better looking, so I believe that, from that standpoint, I don't know your traveling abilities, and of course, you were an athlete. You played in a lot of different places. I traveled for 20 years, and I think that my travel schedule for those 20 years and being in so many different cities and knowing so many different people, and I think that I would have a slight advantage because I've experienced just about every state in the United States.
I think you'd quickly become a network part of the community rapidly, and I would carve out a niche of some sort in a smaller segment. You would become integrated rapidly. I agree with you on that. Who's more likely to reply all to an email accidentally?
Oh, I think you.
Me?
You think it'd be me?
I think it'd be you. You and technology do not always align.
Well, this is true.
I can't always even get you to get the mute button off on a Zoom call at this point.
I've sent some emails out. Now, it's funny because Kurt, the owner of our company, has done it a few times, but I've hit send all that I've tried to pull it back, or sent an email that, oh, damn, did I just do that? But so you might be right. From making mistakes on technology, definitely me.
I was going to say, if you don't point that one at yourself.
You're 10 times better on technology than I am.
I was going to go, now we're getting into delusionalville here. And that's, so who's a better bullshitter?
Oh, I think you are. I think that I say that with all due respect. Not that you say bullshit, but I think that you have the gift of being able to enter into a conversation and take control of that conversation and lead it to where you want it to go. You definitely have me beat on that. Of course, I will be nice and say that's not saying that you bullshit. It's that you have the gift of conversation direction,
directional control.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a kind way of saying it. My wife would just call it bullshitter, but that's okay. Yeah. That's good. So before we wrap, what's the latest on the mortgage? Give us our mortgage update, and we'll take this one away. Okay, so
just real quick, we're in the week with higher rates than what we started. I try to always make it kind of generic. I don't want to give you exact, but there's just still so much confusion over the Iran situation. This is the story over the last 5 weeks. Literally, it's 5 weeks today. And the market, 5 weeks ago today, the market really sold off and our rates went up higher. And we've been trying to recover for the last 5 weeks. And I'll say that today, compared to 5 weeks ago, we're better. We're definitely better. And we've seen the stabilization. We see that, the cost of oil has gone up and it's come back down. So we're better off than we were 5 weeks ago. But this week, we've seen another sell-off, just the instability, whether Iran's going to come to the table, whether we're going to have to, completely, eradicate them, if that's how it winds up going. There's so much instability. So it's all about oil. It's all about the Strait of Hormuz. And it's all whether we think that they're going to come to the table. Now, today has been a little bit better day than yesterday. But we're still in the week worse off. I think that this is going to come to a head a lot quicker than what most people think. I think over the next 2 weeks, this thing gets solved one way or another, and we see oil come back down. There's no reason for it to be where it's at other than just the fear of transportation. So,
well, it's a good update, and I love how you do them every week for us. And I always want to say this to our audience because I think it's important to remind them, whatever the hell the update is and whatever the hell the direction is, it shouldn't change the things that you're doing to build your business, to prepare for purchasing a home, to prepare your finance, because those are, just like I tell my kids all the time, that's a whole bunch of stuff you don't control. But the thing that you do control is whether or not you are taking advantage of what is in front of you, building the platform for you to be successful and reaching out, setting the stage. Because one thing that I do know is that those that are doing it, they're growing. Mm-hmm. They're successful. Those that really want to take on home ownership are doing so, and they will capitalize on the drop.
Absolutely.
And there is going to be a moment, whenever that is in the future, where there'll be a drive of some factor that causes a rate drop that is relative to what's been extended, and a refi burst will hit, and everything that you were doing will be what pays dividends then, as a homeowner being in a position to capitalize it, as a professional and a loan officer ready to capture and take care of your clients, to take advantage of those that were on the fence, all of those things to support their needs.
Right.
Don't let the distractions take you away from doing the things that you can control. Don't let that stop you from getting prepared to scale. Because if you wait to try to scale when it's already happening, you are playing a catch-up game that I have witnessed people fail at ever actually getting there. And there are as many people out there who've said, I did not make as much money or do as many loans or create as much in my database as I could have had I been prepared for that rush.
Yep.
And you are in a position right now, control those things. So don't let what's happening around the world stop you from driving your habits day in and day out. And I want to say it every time we talk about it, so that people don't get their gas pedal foot and depress it and just kind of hang on. It's like, keep the gas pedal down and do the things you should do.
If there was something I would say as a follow-up, and I agree with you, look up the term of the time cost of money. Every delay, if you're waiting for interest rates to come down, what you've lost in that time frame is going to cost you money. And there's all sorts of consequences. So the time cost of money is something important to think about. And so do it now. It's do it now. The last thing I want to say is that, man, some of these books that we've been reviewing would, look in our online and see some of the stuff that we're talking about. Break the Ceiling for Michelle Zaragoza. What else we had?
So definitely, we'll do the promo. Go get Break the Ceiling by Michelle Zaragoza. I just was at Albert's book launch and signing last night. From Darkness to Redemption. Great book. Very, very much for those of us that, with families and dealing with life. And one of the legends that helped Buzz carry the first mortgage across the country, Mike Miklas, Success Redefined, we had on last week. And we've got others that have written books, but we'll put those links in our episode here. Go pick up the books, and again, reach out to us. Again, if you're looking for scale, don't sit on your heels and let the world dictate to you where your success is. Take control of your own destiny, and even just to pick our brains. We're here. Thank you for tuning in, Buzz. Thanks for the wisdom. Thanks for going out of your way to color coordinate with me today.
Yeah, I called you early, so it was good. It was good job.
Who wore it best conversation we can leave for the audience to enjoy. But appreciate you all tuning in. This was a fun chance for us to just revisit and chat, talk about what's important to us, and again reflect on all the influence and inspiration that we're beneficially impacted from our guests I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen. This has been another episode of the Blitz Break. Enjoy your weekend. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Check us out on all the podcast platforms and follow us on social media. And if you're a loan officer or a borrower and you have an inquiry, reach out to us directly, DM, or message us on any of the platforms. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next time.